All right, good morning, Coastal Bend. I'm meteorologist Carly Smith here. All right, good morning, Coastal Bend. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, but also not a lot at all for South Texas, so we'll get into it. We are in a hot and humid weather pattern, and that's going to continue to be the case. So it is going to remain hot and humid. You're going to feel very sticky, but we are losing the Saharan dust heading into the weekend. May still be a hint of dust here, but the good news is we're starting to say goodbye to the Saharan dust. We've got a new moon on Sunday that could increase our tide or have it running a little higher than anticipated, but overall I'm expecting minimal impacts, even though we are now tracking Invest 97L, which is now potential tropical cyclone 4 as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to break down everything you need to know there. Thank you for joining this live update. Hey there, Coastal Bend. It's meteorologist Carly Smith, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have and just break down the tropics, whether it's going to impact us or not. We do have a system that is moving into the Gulf of Mexico, so I just want everyone to be aware of it and prepared for this system. So what we see is a potential tropical cyclone. So this was named Invest 97L at 10 a.m. The National Hurricane Center changed the name to a potential tropical cyclone 4. So potential tropical cyclone 4, what a potential tropical cyclone is a disturbance that's not yet a tropical cyclone, but it is going to pose a threat with tropical storm force or hurricane conditions in the next 48 hours. And that's what we're going to see along the Gulf Coast of Florida. The National Hurricane Center is also able to then issue advisories and put out the well-known forecast cone. So here's the latest on Tropical Cyclone 4. It is right over the Caribbean. We've got convection thunderstorms over Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, the southern end of the Bahamas, Cuba, as well as Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. So this storm's going to kind of ride right along the edge of Cuba and then make its way into the Gulf of Mexico over this weekend. So here's the forecast cone that was updated at 10 a.m. What you see is by Saturday evening, it's near the Florida Keys, the center of the system. Now, with that being said, when we talk about the center, that's what makes forecasting these systems so difficult so early on, is the center is just not there. So if we go back, you don't really see an organized center. So the forecast is very difficult to get right or initiate because there's not an organized center that we can then put in the forecast model and draw this cone. So this is some of the most complicated forecasting. Props to the National Hurricane Center for getting all this modeling data and putting together typically a pretty great forecast, especially this far out. But with that being said, they are sending out to the hurricane hunters to get an idea of where the center of the system is. So the forecasting will only get better from here on out. So once again, we are expecting tropical storm force conditions as it moves into the eastern Gulf of Mexico, especially there by the Florida Keys Sunday at 8 p.m. The system is going to turn north, and that is because of that low that we have, that trough that's going to break apart the subtropical ridge and give way to a weaker atmospheric environment that allows for the storm to be pulled almost like a magnet up toward that trough. What tropical systems do, they tend to ride around areas of high pressure and they tend to be pulled toward areas of low pressure. And that is how we get the forecast and get an idea of where the system is going. So this is going to tap into a cold front that's essentially going to go across the eastern United States. Not going to have a big impact on Texas, though, in any way whatsoever. But the closer this stays to the coast of Florida, likely the weaker it will stay. So we are still expecting tropical storm force conditions as it does impact areas of kind of the north central region of Florida, and then it does have the chance to cross over into the Atlantic and then possibly regain strength or organize again once it is in the Atlantic Ocean. But this is something we're watching. We're not worrying about it here in Texas. In fact, looking at our wave heights, if this system does stay at a tropical storm force like the forecast does intend, we're not going to see big uptick in or swell or anything. It's also moving pretty quickly. So if we go back to the forecast cone, let me get that back on here. You see that it is already crossing over by Monday morning. It's already crossing through Florida and approaching the Atlantic, right? So this is going to move pretty quickly, and that is going to limit its time in the Gulf of Mexico and therefore limit the wave action that it does produce. So not anticipating much of an uptick in our waves, but Wednesday we could see a little bit of a 2-foot wave with a 7-second swell, or 7-second period between the swell. That could potentially be from this tropical system, but it's not going to have a big impact here. Once our periods get closer to 7-8 seconds, our rip current risk does go up a bit, but we're not anticipating much in the way of high surf or anything like that. So that is a good sign that the system is going to stay weak. We appreciate that. We don't want to see devastation happen to Florida. So when I zoom out, this is on Sunday. So this is Sunday at 2 p.m. You only see the wave heights around where the system would be. That would be like right here, where the lighter blue color is. That's only a forecast of 2 to 4 foot waves. Now it does look like it may have a better opportunity to produce some larger waves once there's kind of this greater fetch, kind of like we saw with Alberto. There's an area of high pressure. I forget that I don't have the tools ready to draw in this new layout that we have, but what essentially is going on is we have the high pressure over here, and then we have the tropical system, which is a low pressure over here, right? And so in between these two areas, we're going to get strong winds that go around on the northeastern side of the system, and that's going to increase the fetch, increase the winds, increase the wave height. So it does have a greater potential of producing larger waves once it is in the Atlantic, and there's more of a steeper pressure gradient between the low associated with the tropical system and the high pressure. But essentially, what this name change allows is for the forecast cone to be created, and additionally we have tropical storm warnings in place across portions of southern Florida and tropical storm watch in place for the Keys, as well as Fort Myers, Sarasota, Tampa Bay. All of these areas could see tropical storm force conditions within the next 48 hours, and that's why it has the name Potential Tropical Cyclone 4. So now we'll get a little bit more into the Texas or South Texas forecast. Races pray for Florida. When do you think we will get more rain again? That's a great question, Kristen. It doesn't look great. We could see a little bit of isolated activity over the weekend, but I won't count on that. It's going to be very, very, very spotty. So, yep, that's pretty much all we've got in terms of rain. Just a chance for a spotty shower here or there. Nothing that's expected to add up to much of anything at all. So if you are headed to the beach this weekend, we're going to have pretty flat conditions. So that will be nice. We should see some water clarity shaping up where you can see things easier, including one of my favorite things to do when the waves are flat is go out to the jetties and watch the sea turtles that swim around and eat the algae out off the jetty rocks. They're much easier to see when the waves are weaker and when the water is clear. So anticipating those conditions this weekend. Winds will be light out of the southeast, 5 to 15 miles per hour. On Saturday, Sunday, southeast winds 8 to 18 miles per hour. So we pick up the waves just a little bit, but still anticipating pretty flat conditions here, even with that system in the Gulf of Mexico. Plenty of sunshine here because of high pressure. So once again, this is our model data from the tropical wave. We now have the forecast cone from the potential tropical cyclone. They're the same thing, but just different things are allowed by the National Hurricane Center with the different names. But these models are still models that we can look at and use. So all of this like ensemble of data is pretty much on target for some sort of landfall in Florida and then a crossover into potentially the Atlantic, or at least right along the eastern coastline there. And that's because the gap in this area of high pressure is going to be timed just in time for this to tap into the edge of this high pressure and be pulled toward the low to the north there Sunday. So Sunday is going to kind of be a key day in this forecast because then the subtropical high ridge starts to build back in as we head into Monday and Tuesday. And oh boy, that's going to make us pretty hot. So we got a question about rainfall. Kristen asked about the rain. It doesn't look good. Very, very limited rain when you see just the very light green color. That's maybe a few 100ths of an inch. All of the rain is looking to stay associated with that tropical system. So regardless of development, strength, timing, size, any of that, it does look like Florida is going to get some heavy rain. And with that being said, do remember inland flooding is the #1 killer within the last 10 years associated with tropical systems. So the strength of the storm, Harvey was a tropical storm when it dumped 40+ inches of rainfall over Houston and created devastation across that area. So inland flooding can happen regardless of the strength of the storm. So that's something that Florida will have to watch out for, as well as areas along the East Coast. For us, no rain really in the forecast, unfortunately. We've got the high pressure already settled in. We finally have blue skies back, so we're saying goodbye to the Saharan dust. My favorite thing about this forecast, we're going to see less of the dust through the weekend. You still may notice a hint of the dust, especially right along the horizon at sunrise and sunset particularly, but it's not going to be much. We've got pretty calm conditions in terms of our wind as well today and tomorrow. The wind does pick up just a tad on Sunday. Sunday is also going to be a new moon, so like I mentioned, the tide may be a little higher, but with the fairly flat conditions out there, there's not going to be a lot of moving water, so I'm not anticipating coastal flooding or anything like that. It's just going to get hot with high pressure over us. So we're talking highs in the 90s, 98 degrees, the high on Saturday. So as I mentioned, there is a front that slides south. That's what this tropical cyclone is going to tap into. You actually can see the tropical cyclone trying to take shape there near the Florida Keys in this forecast model. Then lots of rainfall over Florida. High pressure is going to make this front kind of stall over central Texas. We could see a few showers for northern counties on Sunday, but it doesn't look great. High pressure still dominating, and a sea breeze shower possible Monday afternoon. Outside of that, not anticipating much in the way of rain. So I didn't put rain chances on the 7-day. The focus instead is heat. So that's pretty much going to do it for this live update. Thank you again for watching. We'll keep an eye on this potential tropical cyclone and any developments there, but the good news is it's staying in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So not much to worry about here in Texas. Wave heights still looking pretty flat over the weekend. Great boating, paddling conditions with the light winds as well. We are going to see sunshine for the most part as we head into next week with hot temperatures, and that heat index of 110 can be dangerous, especially if you are doing strenuous activity or work during those peak daytime heating hours right around noon and into the early afternoon. So try to limit strenuous activity, and additionally, please, please, please stay hydrated. We're entering our hottest month typically. The normal high is 95 degrees for the month of August. That's going to do it for me. I'm meteorologist Carly Smith for KIII 3 News, and this was your 3 weather impact forecast update live. Thank you so much for joining.